Today's rum tasting, I'm going to Barbados and we're going to be taking on Plantation Barbados 5-year-old. Now in my head I was going to do a review of Plantation XO. I then thought I was going to do Plantation OFTD. I've recently done those, by recently I say 8 and 9 months ago, on the main channel, and I kind of wanted to actually revisit them after a year or so. So another 3 or 4 months before I redo reviews on that, just to see how my palate has changed and any thoughts and all that has changed. Now, I have actually done the 5-year-old as is part of a Barbados review video. And actually, I'm going to kind of get these out to play as well. I'm going to do a little head-to-head with the Dolly's 5 and the Mount Gay Black Barrel as well. I think that's how that video went. Now, I haven't watched that video. As I say, it was 8, 9 months ago. I want to do this video and I want to edit it and all that before I go back and watch what I said in the previous video, just to see how my palate has changed and evolved over that, because I think it's about time I kind of did this in its own right. And I've been bashing the Dolly's 5-year-old a bit recently, so I thought let's just kind of, but I've been bashing it on my thought process from 8 or 9 months ago, so I kind of thought let's go down the rabbit hole of doing this. Now this, for all you guys watching in the US, this is the 5-year-old. There is the Grand Reserve. We don't get the Grand Reserve in the UK. That is very much, and I don't think you get this in the US, although I might be wrong. Sorry, I'm battling the aeroplanes at the moment. They're flying over my head. I live Duxford, so South Cambridge. We've got the War Museum there. So Saturdays, film this on Saturdays, you get the planes flying around. It's fun, it's giggles. So what can I tell you about this? I've got the actual Plantation webpage up there because it is full of information, absolutely full of information on it. So I can run down this molasses rum. Fermentation 3 to 4 days. You can read this on it for yourselves in there. Distillation, twin column and pot still. Tropical aging 3 to 4 years, which means in Barbados, WIRD, West Indian Rum Distillery. Tropical, so that's tropical aging. Continental aging 1 to 2 years over in France in cognac casks, Pierre Ferrand cognac casks. So we can effectively say that the lowest aged rum in this is 5 years. That's what they've gone for. But you can kind of work out that actually most of the rum in this is aged for 5 years. The 4-year-old will be aged for a year, possibly in. So the 4-year-old Barbados will have been aged for a year in the cognac casks, and the 3-year-old would have been aged in 2 years in the cognac casks, if that makes sense. So I kind of get roughly how it's there. Basically what I'm saying is I don't think you're going to get a 6 and a 7-year-old rum in here. It's just they're all 5-year-old rums. So we've got that. Volatile substances we don't worry about because we're not at that point in our journey. But dosage 16 grams per litre, and that's kind of where I want to go for this, because that will obviously be 0 in dosage, no sugar added to that, because heaven forbid Richard Seal put additives in his rums or anything like that. Side discussion that we can have. So how does this kind of sit? Let's look at the price of this. I've got all the prices up here on there. This was £30, £30 45p Master of Malt. So my first nosing of this properly in about 8 or 9 months. Basically, the impression I get off it, a dialed back Plantation XO, which should be roughly there above my head. Very similar vibes off that. The age won't be too dissimilar, because don't forget that's not a 20-year-old rum, it's just a 20th anniversary rum. Slightly less sugar, but it is that inherently those, and I drink plenty of that. So, you know, smelling this is like, oh, that's very, very similar to that. So we're getting vanilla, we're getting coconut, we're getting pineapple. I inherently always get orange off this as well. So there's orange notes, there's sort of orange peel notes in there, that sort of like really vibrant, juicy orange on there. Bitter, that's the wrong thing. What am I trying to say? It reminds me of something like a Grand Marnier, or what's the other one? What I'm thinking of, the Campaniero orange. That's the sort of orange vibe I get off there. Not Cointreau or Triple Sec or anything like that. Those luxurious orange liqueurs. That's what I kind of smell. And, you know, there's other things in the background there. There was a little bit of dried fruit. There's a little bit of wood and all that. But inherently, I wouldn't call this a rounded rum, because inherently it is the vanilla, a little bit of the sweetness, but those sort of tropical fruit notes that can punch through above everything else. Tasting is lovely. It's absolutely lovely. if your budget can't stretch for, I don't know why I don't drink this more, to be honest. If your budget can't stretch to the XO, just see this as a slightly less sweeter, slightly less, is this going to be the right word? Slightly less refined version of the Plantation XO. The fruit is there, the woody notes are there, you get a little bit of spicy tingle. That's kind of what I mean. I think probably the extra sugar in the XO kind of gets or takes away that sort of spiciness that you get off this, that kind of peppery burn, if you like. But caramel, vanilla, caramel, coconut, pineapple, oak aging, spice, the orange is there on the aftertaste. You know, it's a delicious rum. 30 quid. I genuinely, sitting here, I generally don't know why I don't talk about it more, because I really do like that. I would surmise off the tasting neat that it, and I know how this has fared in the past, it wouldn't be my favourite for mixing. It wouldn't be my rum and coke rum. It wouldn't be my rum and ginger rum. Ginger ale, maybe. I kind of need to revisit this with the Stratford sodas. But it's inherently not my favourite mixing rum, because when it comes to mixing rums, I prefer less fruit, if you know what I mean. I prefer that kind of vibe. I prefer, I like lighter column still rums as well, don't forget, but I prefer sort of the vanilla, the more wood oak notes forward without going excessive than I do over fruit. For me, this is a fruit bomb. But it's a flipping lovely fruit bomb. I think you need this in your collection. I think this is a neat sipper, easily a neat sipper. I get it's not for the purists, because, you know, sweetness on this, we are probably talking 12s, 13s out of 20. And as I always say, your Bumbu, your Diplomatico, your Dom Papas are high teens, like 15, 16, 17. So, you know, at 12, sort of 13, you know, it's getting there. And I do think it's slightly sweeter, even though it's got less sugar, than the XO. The XO is just, I don't know, it's just more refined for me, if you like. But that is one flipping delicious rum. And for 30 quid, I really do love it. I really do enjoy it. And for the life of me, sitting here now, I really don't know why it doesn't feature more heavily on me just grabbing it and sipping it neat. It is definitely 100% sitting here now, a session rum. Put that in front of me, neat. You know, rum fashions. That's going to be a great rum fashion rum. Absolutely. If you're not a neat drinker, if you like a little bit of dilution from ice and water, a little bit of bitters, maybe touch. I wouldn't add extra sugar to this, but I know some of you will do. It's a great, you know, it's a great kind of rum in that respect. I know that this hasn't fared well for me in cocktail tests and mixer tests, because I do think I prefer it neat. So how does this compare to the Dolly's 5-year-old? Now, I've made the executive decision. Looking at the prices, I'm not going to compare the Mount Gay Black Barrel. I don't think Mount Gay have a player in this category, if you like. You probably do, but this is, so that's £30 and 45p. This is £29.94. So we're talking, what, for, where we go, 50p difference, 50p in a bottle. The Black Barrel is £36, so another £6. There's no age statement on the Black Barrel either. I don't know too much about Mount Gay. I haven't been down the Mount Gay rabbit hole. Perhaps because they only really have one, maybe two rums. You know, I write off the Eclipse, because the Eclipse for me is just like, you know, and perhaps it's a little bit snobbish, but I just generally think it does nothing for me. So how does the Dolly's 5 unsweetened, let's go back to the Dolly's page on there. I've got no other information to give you apart from, you know, it'll be unsweetened. It's a 5-year-old blend of pot and column from Foursquare, Richard Seal. How does that compare? And smelling these on the nose is just so different. It is fruit bomb, traditional kind of aged rum vibes, you know, vanilla, oak, wood, caramel, maybe a hint of toffee on there, dried fruit. I even get quite a bit of chocolate coming off that. Actually, my favourite, dairy milk. That's the kind of vibe I get. There is, I've used this word recently as well. It's the same filming session, but I was thinking glue, but astringents. I like that word. Let's go posh. I'm trying to go posh, aren't I? But it's this little bit of sort of glue element to it. But this would fare, this is the weird thing for me, but I haven't even sipped this neat. Just on the aroma alone, this is the sort of rum I want to mix with rum and coke, with the ginger and that sort of stuff over that. But is it a neat sipper? I've not revisited this properly in ages. So, and this is the funny thing that sugar does, because they are both 40% ABV. You know, the same ABV. Blind tasting, I would, if you said minimum 40%, I would go, that's 40, 46, 47. It just tastes stronger. There's more alcohol in it. You know you're drinking like a good rum on there. I'm not necessarily saying a better rum, but you know you're drinking a good quality rum off there, which the sugar does kind of mask, but actually makes that more drinkable neat. I'll be honest, this is delicious. It's really nice, but it is harder work. You know, the vanilla's there. There's that chocolate note is there. There's just developing on the back palate is kind of allspice. And the reason I say allspice is it reminds me of pimento dram. I've just got that faint nod to pimento dram on the back there. But there is that wood oak aging. There is that spicy, peppery, tingly alcohol burn to it. And I would actually say more toffee than caramel. It doesn't remind me of caramel. It kind of reminds me of sort of toffee or burnt toffee, that kind of aroma. So I literally can't make up my mind which one, where I sit, because for me they are completely, even though they are both 5-year-old Barbados rums, they are completely different examples of Barbados rum. And that's the sort of argument that sugar kind of makes. Now, I'm not saying sugar's bad or sugar's wrong. Team Foursquare will kind of really come at Team Plantation, because we don't add additives to our rum. How dare you add additives to a rum? How dare you? Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. That is absolute, drinking neat, that is far superior for me and what I enjoy to that. Far superior. I would rather drink that neat than that. However, I know full well, for me, that does mix better. I prefer that in a rum and coke. I prefer that in rum and ginger. That wins cocktails, or cocktail comparisons tests over that. It doesn't necessarily make the best cocktails. I've got far better rums than that behind me in cocktails. Far better. But side by side, it is a tough call. And this is the thing that really kind of bugs me with rum world, because you can't like both. In the grand scheme of things, you can't like both. You're either Team Plantation or you're Team Foursquare, and for me it's complete garbage and rubbish and nonsense, because for me they're both, you know, decent rums. For me, this is kind of how I'm going to sum it up, right? And I wouldn't say money's definitely not no object for me. You know, I'm far from well off or rich or affluent or anything like that. You know, I've got a budget as much as you guys. But when it comes to neat sipping rum, this is the way I'm going to go, because neither of these would actually be my first thought. If I wanted that, I love that neat, but I'm actually going to go to Plantation XO, and actually, do you know what? I probably wouldn't bother with that, because I'd go back to the Seal, which is, yes, all right, is. Well, what's the price of that? 30. This has got to be 45, 46 pounds. So £15 more expensive. And that's 15, well, that's £20 more expensive. But I'd rather have them. And that's the point. That's where I struggle in this video, because they are, to guide you in one direction over the other one, if you're looking, if £30 is your ceiling, they are completely different rums, completely and utterly different rums. So there is no that's better than that or that's better than that. It's just rubbish, absolute rubbish. They're both lovely rums. There's just better rums further up, which you kind of expect if you paid a bit more money. But if you had a gun to my head and said you can only have one of these two, purely because I love sipping them neat, I'm going that one.